Hey everybody, it's Kirk, the Crypto Expat, and I'm back with a special video to announce Impulse, the new project from EMP.Money coming soon to the PulseChain. So we had an AMA the other day rolling out Impulse, and it was really exciting, and we had a lot of people coming over from Hex to take a listen to it. And you can listen to the AMA yourself if you want. It's pinned up in Telegram and on Discord, and it's about 2.5 hours long though. So what I wanted to try to do was create a shorter video, hopefully about 5 minutes here, and just go through the key points that you need to know at this stage of the game, which is still pretty early. The team in EMP just wanted to start the process of education and roll this out now, and so that's what we're endeavoring to do. So let's go ahead and talk about the project a little bit and give you some important information that's germane for where we are right now. Okay, so what do I need to know? First thing you need to know is you are not late. There really isn't anything for you to do as an investor at this point, except for maybe educate yourself, which is what you're doing now, and also educate yourself perhaps on PulseChain and PulseX and all of those things if you don't already know about them. But you're not late, and again, the point of rolling this out now by the EMP team was to give everybody a chance to understand what this is, what it isn't, and make plans if they plan to invest. So you're not late, you're early. In terms of timing, nobody knows for sure even exactly when PulseChain is going to go live. The most recent quote from Richard Hart that I've seen, he said, "It feels like a couple of weeks." So make of that what you will. So it could be a couple of weeks, or it could be a month, or it could be several months. It seems very clear to me that he's very interested in making sure that when they do go live with it, that they're not going to have any problems, and he's unwilling to compromise. So take that for what it's worth, but it's certainly not going to happen tomorrow. And then AJ has also told us in AMAs that once PulseChain does go live, it's going to be at least a couple of weeks to a month before Impulse goes live after that, because there's just a lot of things that need to happen that cannot happen until PulseChain is live. So again, you're looking at conservatively a month from now, conservatively. It may be quite a bit longer. So again, those are the time frames that you're dealing with here, so you don't have to panic and think, oh, I don't want to miss out, or what have you. And you've got a little bit of time to think about this and learn. Okay, one of the biggest questions that came up during the AMA was AJ talking about the Genesis phase for Impulse. And I'm not going to get into all the details of what a Genesis phase is, but just take it to be the very initial steps of starting the project and minting the first IMP, which is what the token is called. And in the case of EMP, as you may know, that process was funded and brought to fruition by what we call the Select Six. They are the ones that put the initial investment in to get EMP up and running in the Genesis phase. Now in this project, it's going to be different. It's going to be the EMP treasury that is going to play that role. So there is no, at this time, there's no request for sacrifices or any sort of investment from individual EMP investors to get Impulse started. There's no opportunities of that. AJ has said that there's possibilities that there might be something secondary to the main Genesis phase, but that's not guaranteed, and it's not the main Genesis phase. So basically, we're all involved with the Genesis phase in the sense that we have all contributed to the treasury at EMP, but we won't be involved individually in the Genesis phase. So that seemed to be one of the bigger confusions between, well, how am I going to benefit from this if I'm an EMP investor, but I don't have any way to invest. It's through the treasury that we all will win. Now, I actually talked to AJ about this subject and got a quote from him that hopefully will make it a little bit more clear. So when I talked to him, he said this: the ultimate goal of EMP is to distribute treasury funds to EMP holders. That will happen after shares stop and be the ultimate use case of EMP. That's why it's really important to have a massive treasury creating yield indefinitely. Having EMP Treasury as the #1 owner of Impulse gives our treasury massive yields while also protecting the peg. It also makes us more resilient by maintaining peg on EMP almost indefinitely, as we will be able to continue to provide insane amounts of liquidity and buybacks. Therefore, EMP holders are automatically rewarded the most. So hopefully that makes sense to you. That is the connection between the Genesis phase and all of us. So hopefully that makes that a little bit clearer. So let's go back now and look at what else we might need to know. Okay, well, what are the elements of Impulse? What is this going to be? Well, for lack of a better way of putting it, it's going to be a fork or a clone, if you will, of EMP. So let's take a look at the EMP interface that you're familiar with. Now, remember too that we're going to be having a new UI coming to EMP.Money very soon. It will be that UI that ends up being the Impulse UI, not this one, because we're going to get our new UI first here for BSC, and then they're going to use that, make a few changes, and use that for Impulse. But we can look at this and say there are going to be things that are similar between the two, almost everything in terms of the basic functionality. So what do I mean by that? Well, the first thing we want to look at are the tokens themselves. And so basically the three primary tokens are identical. The EMP token that we all know and love is just going to be called IMP in Impulse. E-shares are iShares, and bonds are iBonds. So it's very straightforward. You can just think about it as being exactly one-to-one between these token types. So it's very easy to understand that. Now, besides other elements of the interface that we want to talk about, when it launches at this point, nothing is set in stone, I should say, by the way, but what we do know is most likely to be there at the very beginning will be the farms. Again, just like this, but again, if you switch out EMP for IMP, eShare for iShare, and in this case, eShare BNB LP will of course be the Pulse token instead of BNB, or it may be PulseX. I'm not sure. One of those two Pulse tokens. It will be paired here, and then IMP iShare. So these three will be the same, just switched over into the Pulse vernacular, if you will. I don't know about staking. I don't believe that will be there. Certainly not at launch, I don't believe. Same with Detonator. There will be a Detonator project on Impulse. It won't be called Detonator, but it'll be basically the same thing. But I don't know exactly when that's going to go live, but I'm pretty sure that it's not going to go live immediately at the launch. Nodes, I believe, will be there from the very beginning, and the boardroom will be there. And again, in the boardroom, it's going to be the same type of thing, where here it'll look, the interface will be similar to this, or to the new version of this, and it'll be IMP and iShares. So you'll be very familiar and comfortable with how it is all operating. It's just different tokens on a different chain. It's fairly simple from that perspective. All right, how can you prepare for Impulse? Well, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there's not a lot to do yet other than to start to get yourself educated. So the first thing that you might want to do, if you're not familiar with PulseChain, or you might want to do some Google searching, watch some videos, and understand what this is. Basically, the simplified version is it's just a new blockchain. Lots of people are very bullish on it and think that it could potentially eliminate many other blockchains like Phantom and other layer 2 chains. Maybe that'll happen, maybe it won't. Some people even think it could perhaps take over and be a Ethereum killer. A lot of people don't think that's going to happen. So again, a lot of people think one thing and a lot of people think another. So we're going to have to wait and see. Nobody knows for sure until this goes live and we see what happens. But you can do some research and understand it. But just think about it as a different flavor of blockchain. Like we are all on BSC, on Binance. It's just a different version of that. What else can you do to prepare? You can decide if you would like to participate in investing in Impulse. If you think you want to take advantage of that, here's what you need to consider. There was also some things being said about, well, what is this not potentially going to be bad for EMP if people are going to maybe take their money out of EMP to go in and have FOMO and go into Impulse instead? Well, why would people do that? First of all, you know EMP, you know the value that it provides, and you understand it, and there's no guarantee that Impulse is going to perform the same, right? It could perform better, it could perform worse. There's no guarantees there. So you know what you have with EMP. And the intention of Impulse is not necessarily for people who are good actors in EMP to move the same assets over to Impulse. The reason that we're doing this, that the team is doing this rather, is twofold. One is to give all of us an opportunity to potentially invest new funds into Impulse, and then also to, and I think this is probably the number one reason, is to attract all the people that are hexagons and those people that are on that side of the fence, to give them an opportunity to participate in our algo project, right? Most of these people probably wouldn't come over and participate on the project on BSC. There's a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? There's, a lot of tribalism, if you will, on both sides. So, this gives people a chance to potentially get involved with our way of doing things, but in their neighborhood. So that it can only be a plus for us. So if you are thinking about wanting to get involved, think about whether or not you can bring new assets into Impulse rather than moving existing assets from EMP over to Impulse. There's really no compelling reason to do that. So the other thing that you want to think about when you're preparing for this is to understand that this is completely new, and therefore you're starting fresh, which may on one hand look like a huge opportunity, but the flip side of that is one of the things that's very unique about EMP, if you think about it, is that there's no such thing as getting in late. People have this FOMO about it and like, am I too late to EMP even? Ridiculous. Especially right now. I've been in the project almost since day one, since just before Detonator launched. And the prices of everything right now are less than they were the day I came into the project. So, and this, as you know, one of the beauties of EMP is that it is not a typical token project where your way of winning is buying a token at X price and hoping someone else down the road is willing to pay Y price for it. That isn't how our ecosystem works. So you can't really be late. And so don't let Impulse create too much attraction to where you would say, oh, well, I'm just going to move all my money from EMP or whatever over to Impulse for that very reason, because it's not necessarily going to benefit you there. It may benefit you if you want to come in and put fresh funds in. That may be something worth doing. But you want to take your time. You have time to take to understand whether you want to get involved in this new chain, and if you do, at what level. And if you don't, know that your participation in EMP.Money is already benefiting you. You don't have to put, you don't have to buy one IMP to benefit from this. Just keep working EMP as you are now. And the last thing is just to be patient, which is pretty much what I've been talking about, is just relax, be patient, understand that the EMP team has a plan to roll out a lot more information than they already have over the next several weeks to months. And you will always be informed, well informed, as you always are with this project. It's the best community in DeFi. So hopefully this has been helpful. It went a little longer than I thought, but hopefully this is a good recap for you, and I wish you the best in your investments with EMP.Money.